And again, welcome everyone tonight to the Club Leadership Webinar for November, the League of American Bicyclists Club Leadership Webinar, brought to you by BikeShopGuys.com. It is a great panel tonight. We have a small club roundtable coming up. Just see my screen here in the Club Leadership Training page of our website. And in putting together panels over the last 2 years, I think I've been doing this, the people who usually put their hands up to speak on the various topics that we cover, whether it's websites or leading group rides or any of the other things that we've covered and that you can see if you go to our Club Leadership Training page off our Club Corner. All these presentations are here from the past. A lot of great stuff, but the people who put their hands up to speak at those things are often from the larger clubs. The people who are running 100 rides a week are more likely to put their hands up and say, oh yeah, I can talk to people about my ride program, than the people who are running more modest programs. And as a result, a lot of the people who are doing terrific, great work running small clubs are not represented in the club leadership webinars. So tonight is a small attempt, a modest attempt to sway the balance back in favor of the small clubs, because so many of our members are running small clubs and need information directly about how to run a small club and how they can do things better, and to share information about their challenges, their successes, and ask for support and help. So that's why I put the panel together tonight. And I've got some great presenters from great organizations here. Ryan Kragrud of Bicycle Longmont, Teresa Filliman of Southwest Bicycle Cycling Club, Cesar Jenkins of Folks on Spokes, and Andres Ozelins of the Finger Lakes Bicycle Club are all here tonight. I know that Ryan has to go and present to the Longmont City Council in a short period, so I'm going to go ahead and put Ryan on first. Bicycle Longmont is a bit of a hybrid between an advocacy organization and a bike club. They do more bike club stuff than the average advocacy organization, and more advocacy than the average bike club. So, Ryan, tell us all about how you make things work at Bicycle Longmont and how it came to be that way.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for taking time out of your Tuesday to tune in or view this slideshow. Like Scott just said, my name is Ryan. I am from Longmont, and this is the cover of our annual report. We finally did our very first annual report, and at the end of this you can get a link and go and take a look at it and download copies for yourself and so forth. Let's see. So, oh, there we go. Okay, so about me, other than being nervous, my name is Ryan Kragrud, and I'm president of Bicycle Longmont. I've been president since 2011, and I was a board member prior to that, where I joined the board in 2009. I have a graduate degree in urban planning and historic preservation. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and I was a former community organizer, and I find that those skills, more so than any, aid me in my work with Bicycle Longmont and moving our organization forward. I worked in Minneapolis from 1993, just out of college, until 99 when I went to grad school. I worked with the First Neighborhoods. Some of you might be familiar with the Midtown Greenway. I believe LAB has featured it in their magazine a couple of times, and it's been in Bicycling and Bicyclist magazine. I moved out to Colorado in 2001 to work with the city of Longmont in their long-range planning, and I was the historic preservation planner here as well. And I currently work for the St. Vrain Valley School District as their planner and GIS specialist. So I like to make maps and cool stuff like that. So our purpose tonight, at least for this presentation, is I'm really going to take a look at it from an organizational development perspective. And I hope that you're able to leave this, at least you're able to take away some things from this presentation, basically helping you to build your organization and maybe take a look at some of the things that we've done at Bicycle Longmont that we've done well, and there's quite a number of things that we haven't done well, but we've learned from those and we'll be able to move our bike organization forward. So our first thing is I'm going to take a look at organizational development. It's hard and it's slow, and It will test your patience, but it's worth it in the end. And I haven't reached the end yet, so I don't really know what that's actually like. But organizations, in my view, are constantly forming, storming, norming, and performing. This is a basic principle in organizational development. And your organization will go through each of these cycles periodically and sometimes erratically. At least that's how ours has worked. Volunteers, recruiting, celebrating, and sometimes you have to let some of those volunteers go that are no longer helpful and actually are kind of holding the organization back and so forth. I really want to underscore the importance in this presentation of reaching out to other organizations. If you're a small club, there's, just out here in the West, there's a real propensity towards this bootstraps mentality of we're going to lift ourselves up and do it ourselves, and we're not going to have to, rely on anybody. And in nonprofit development and developing your organization, developing your club, don't recreate the wheel. Reach out to people who are already doing it and learn from them, as well as from other organizations that are doing classes and so forth, and like the League and the Alliance and so forth. Bike shop relationships. This was something that came up in the question someone had raised in the email to Scott, and I'm just going to probably touch on this one a little bit. From my perspective and from the perspective of Bicycle Longmont, bike shop relationships are tricky and they're territorial, but I'll get more into that in just a few minutes. So a little bit about Longmont. I should have actually, now saying that I make maps, I probably should have made a map for this. But anyway, Longmont is basically about 40 miles north of Denver. We are about 10 miles northeast of Boulder, and we are about 20 miles south of Fort Collins, along the Front Range of Colorado. A lot of people vacation in Estes Park, and that is, as we say, just up the hill from here. So we're not in the mountains, but you can see them from our front doorsteps. So this last year, we were elevated from bronze to silver. Longmont has about 86,000 people. We have 154 miles of bike lanes, trails, and sharrows. We have a jobs to housing ratio of 0.48, which basically means that half the people who live in Longmont are able to work here as well. And that's an important ratio. You should find that out about your community, and that'll help you to figure out, possibly how big your population is that you can actually get on bikes or get them to commute to work in some other means. Our average household income is a little bit wealthier than the average household income in the United States. We are at $81,000. I went with average family size rather than household size because Longmont is a middle-class, family-oriented community, and our family size is about 3.09 here. Our average age is 36. 41% of the people living here have a bachelor's degree or higher, so we're a highly educated community. People commuting to work, we're at about 3%, so we'd like to get that up so that we can increase our standing in the bicycle-friendly community continuum. And I put this at the bottom. My wife questioned why I put no colleges or universities. Basically, what we've noticed is that the communities that really do well in getting people on bikes have colleges and universities, and we think Longmont is going to become the first gold or platinum community to do so without a college or a university. That's kind of a goal that we've set up for ourselves. So we have, Bicycle Longmont is a 100% volunteer organization. We have 9 people on our board. We have 3 women and 6 guys. This is the first board of directors for Bicycle Longmont that has people on the board who came up through the ranks of volunteering for a program and then getting invested and then getting into getting onto the board and so forth. So Lauren is one of our original members. I'm the president. Brian Gansel, he's an example of reaching out to other organizations. He's with Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance. He's a resident of Longmont, and he's also on our board. Chris Koyman was a volunteer with our Kids Holiday Bike Program, and then later got onto our board. Devin Quince heads up our Bike Valet service. Joey Shimp was a member of our Bike Valet, and then she is also now become our treasurer. Sherry O'Hara is a bike shop owner, and Scott Conlon is our marketing, Facebook, Google guru, I guess. And then Drew Illman is a sponsor who sponsored one of our fundraisers and then got so turned on by our organization that he wanted to get involved, volunteered, and then became a member of our board. So, our mission is that we want more people riding bicycles more often. The history of Bicycle Longmont dates back to 1993. We reformed in 2001 during a city plan update. We were formed to advise the city, or cyclists came together to advise the city on infrastructure decisions and to promote bicycling. Essentially what was going on at that time, around 2000, 2001, the city had a policy of going in and resurfacing streets, but they didn't restripe the streets with the bike lanes and so forth. So a small group of people got together to help to inform our city's transportation plan. So this is how I'm going to be structuring my presentation using this kind of swirl of forming, storming, norming, and performing. And it kind of tells the story of Bicycle Longmont in that, let's see, there we go. In that it kind of does a timeline, shows a timeline of our organization. So we were formed, or reformed I guess, in 2001. We were formed to increase cycling awareness in 2001 and guide city infrastructure. In 2002, we started our storming phase, in which we were coming up with new ways of trying to accomplish the things that we had set out here in our forming stage. And so the focus then turned to basically infrastructure and education. And those were the two things that Bicycle Longmont really focused on. During our norming phase, we created relationships with the city, staff, and politicals. We even carried out a Safe Routes to School program in concert with our school district. And our club started doing some rides, so basically 1 or 2 rides per month and so forth, with a club that had, at that time, about 30 dues-paying members that we would draw upon for our rides. In 2005 to 2007, we were credited with creating trails. We'd strengthened our relationships with politicals and city and staff and so forth. We created more informal rides. By that I mean we probably went from 4 a month to maybe 6 during the summer. We basically started functioning more as a complaint filter for local cyclists who wanted the city to do various things like fill potholes on the greenways, replace bike lanes, striping, and so forth. Then something happened in 2007. Basically, 2007 was our peak with our membership. We peaked out at about 50 people, dues-paying members in 2007, and since then, especially between 2007 and 2009, it flatlined, and then our membership began to decline. Even our board members began to decline. We went from 7 board members down to, we had 3 members at one time, and then we were able to get it back up to 4 to meet the minimum quorum for our board. So at the same time that Bicycle Longmont was going through this kind of cycle within its organization, there was a new cruiser ride that was started in Longmont, and it was called Bike Night. And if you read the book Pedaling Revolution, you'll know that they have a little ongoing dialogue through the book about critical mass rides and these rides that are set up to kind of disrupt traffic and to kind of be a nuisance, but also to advocate for bikes over cars and so forth. Bike Night is similar to that, only in that we get a large number of people riding bikes on a Wednesday night. But we don't back up traffic, and we have about, right now we have about 40 to 50 people under the age of 5 riding with us. So kids kind of keep the adults in line and so forth. And what it's become is a real family-friendly cruiser ride through our older areas of Longmont. The purpose, when we set out to make it, was to get to know people, build community, and to have fun. I was the person who created Bike Nights, and periodically I'd ask Bicycle Longmont to join the ride, and every time it was a pretty firm no. We were regarded as the unwashed, the people who were riding bikes because we like to ride bikes for recreational purposes and weren't necessarily focused on the transportation qualities or the riding centuries or being competitive. It was just a way to get out on a Wednesday night at first to go to our local craft breweries, and then later to just exercise our kids so that they would just fall asleep at 8 o'clock. So in 2009 there was a pivotal time in Bicycle Longmont when President Anthony Chekis basically decided that something needed to change within Bicycle Longmont, and so he asked me after one of the bike nights to merge with Bicycle Longmont, and I said, well, I'll give it a shot. And so in 2010, Bike Night did merge with Bicycle Longmont. And so if you take a look at this graph down here, what you should see is that since 2003, I've been counting the number of people who ride each Wednesday throughout the summer. And the blue line here is 2003, and then 2005, and then we dip down in 2006, and it keeps growing. But the big difference is this jump from 2009 to 2010. So in 2010, we merged Bike Night into Bicycle Longmont. We also created what has come to be known as the Farmers Market Bike Valet. So we had a bike valet going on, and we had 6 people for 6 hours every Saturday for 21 weeks talking to people who decided to ride their bikes to the farmers market about Bicycle Longmont and about Bike Night. And because of that, we had this huge growth in Bike Night. And so as much as I would like to be self-centered and say it's because I'm an awesome bike leader and I was providing something that nobody else was doing in Longmont, it's just not the case. It turned out that bringing Bike Night into Bike Longmont was one of the best things we could have done because it made Bike Longmont a friendlier organization, and it welcomed families and people with all different abilities of riding bikes into our organization. So that brings us up to 2010, and so here we are in 2010 and 2011, I guess December of 2010. In December, the board got together and we decided we needed to do a course correction because after a summer of bike valet and as well as Bike Night, the one thing that we took away from that summer was, number one, nobody knew who we were. They knew that there was a bike organization in town, but they were convinced that Bicycle Longmont was a bike shop and that we were not an advocacy organization, and they just weren't really sure what our brand was or what we were about and so forth. So we decided we needed to do a course correction and still, work with the city and to do the infrastructure pieces, but we really needed to expand on our encouragement and the perception of our organization. And so this was about the same time that we also looked at we created a new vision for our organization and then also our brand. So in our storming phase, we decided to create fundraisers, and we established Facebook pages, and then we ignited a meetup site that we purchased, which was beginning and returning cyclists on meetup.com. So we purchased that from somebody here in town, and then we turned that into our volunteer-led volunteer rides for Bicycle Longmont. So when we were discussing this fundraising idea, one part of the board was really into doing centuries and so forth, and we said, well, he was really pushing for the flat as heck century for folks on road bikes and so forth. And then I proposed a cruiser fundraiser, being that Bike Night was growing and we had all these families and stuff like that pushing into Bicycle Longmont and getting activated in our community. And really a lot of us on the board just thought that a century ride would be middle-aged men in Lycra, which I guess this year we coined that as mammals, which I thought was rather funny. Anyway, middle-aged men riding their road bikes for a century. We wouldn't get that many. So we ultimately went with the cruiser fundraiser because we wanted to do something that got young families in, that got our brand to the kids and to the families to see that we were more than just fixing potholes and that we were a vibrant and credible organization. So our fundraiser basically built on the success of a Bike Night. The cruiser fundraiser was scheduled for Father's Day weekend of 2011. The problem with our fundraiser was that, we were broke at the time that we came up with the idea of doing it, and so we created a fundraiser for the fundraiser, which, by the way, was our film fest. And if you're looking at doing a fundraiser for your community, a film fest is probably your biggest bang for your buck. So we were able to raise some funds to get our cruiser ride going, or our goodnight ride going. So the first year we planned for 200 people to show up for our cruiser ride, and on the day of our event we had over 1,200 people sign up, or signed up for the event. And then this past year in 2012 we had 2,500 people on it. We provide a 10-mile route, a 3-mile route, and a 1-mile route. Our tickets are $20 for individuals and $45 for families. And this was the interesting part. The purchasers of this were predominantly women, and mostly families ages 30 to 45. The average household income of our participants was $87,000. The first year we had 12 volunteers to do this, and in our second year we got 20 volunteers, which in both cases is way too few volunteers. The first year we raised $19,500, and to put it on we had to spend about $16,000, which meant $3,500 for our programs and so forth. In our second year we raised $26,000 and spent $27,000. So you can tell that the math didn't quite work out there. But I say that because I want to be honest that sometimes your fundraisers work and sometimes they don't. But what happens in the process is that we were building goodwill in our community, and people were seeing us as a credible organization. So this is the same graph as before, but I've added in 2011 and 2012. The gap between here, you can say that this gap here was bike valet. So add that same gap, but the remainder of these were basically our goodnight ride, which built awareness for our organization, which got more people involved with us, and we were able to get more volunteers to help us out with our bike valet and other areas. So in 2011, we had a huge success in 2012. So in 2011 we had a huge success, and so this year in 2012 we had some of that inertia from 2011 pushing us forward in that first part of the year. In 2012 we were able to take that inertia, we were able to increase our meetup rides, our volunteer rides. We went from 12 rides a month in the summer of 2011 to over 30, I think was our average this year for rides per month in the summer. And those rides were for people of any ability. So from people who are getting back on their bikes to people who have been riding for a while. And the groups just started self-selecting. And so we'd have everyone take off at the same time, but the people who wanted to go at a slower pace would go at a slower pace, and so forth. And we also created a no-drop policy in which we were able to move forward to do rides and so forth. So I didn't put anything in for norming or performing. What I'm hoping, actually I'm going to get to the next slide. So I didn't put anything for norming or performing because I'm coming up to that in a couple minutes, in about a minute or so. So this is the dollars and cents of our organization. At least it was. There it is. So what you see is going way back to 2006, our budget was pretty modest, and then we had a nice pattern of spending too much, carrying some over, spending too much, and so forth. So let's go up here to 2010. What we had noticed in 2010 when I was talking about that course correction is that we had overspent. We were looking at being in the hole, but we had enough in reserves to fill the gap. So then we basically, in 2011, were able to create our fundraiser cruiser ride, which then funded us for the year at about $30,000. We spent $27,000. So we're able to take the balance and apply that to our programs, and we were able to jumpstart the fundraising for our next goodnight ride based on our carryover. So our successful fundraisers in 2011 afforded us a board retreat. We were able to create a mission, vision, goals, and all the good stuff for our organization. When you add this much money into an organization that hasn't had it before, you get a lot of conflict. and we had conflict on our board, and we wound up having a major board turnover where we've added 5 new members. 3 of those volunteers, like I was just saying, came from our volunteer ranks. We got 1 sponsor from our Ignite Ride, and then we have a shared board member with another nonprofit in the area. So our success is what we've done from December 2010 until 2012. We've got our Bicycle Film Festival that I mentioned. We've been doing it for 2 years. It's a cost-effective way to raise funds for your organization with not a lot of volunteer work that needs to go into it. We have our Farmers Market Bike Ballet. We started it 3 years ago, and over the course of the summer we parked 800 bikes. The second year, in 2011, we parked 2,300 bikes, and then last summer we had a couple of rainouts, and we shortened our bike ballet by about an hour. We parked over 2,200 bikes for that 21-week period. So, Bike Ballet is our most volunteer-intensive program. At 22 weeks, we have about 6 people working each week at our farmers market. It's also become a great recruiting technique for us to get more volunteers for other areas and to fill out our rides. Our meetup rides generally run May to October. In 2010, we purchased the site. In 2011, we had 141 volunteer-led rides at 787 rider experiences. That's what our marketing guys say I need to say it, because we have double counting and so forth in that number, but we have had over 787 people take part in those rides. In 2012, we had over 954 volunteer-led rides, so a huge increase, and we had about 1,500 rider experiences. One of the questions that was emailed in earlier was, how do you attract different people to your rides and so forth? Our meetup rides are predominantly baby boomers. Our meetup rides basically happen during the day when most people who are retired have time to ride, and we basically focus on destinations. Bike night is 21 weeks. It's Wednesday nights. We had over 2,062 riders this year, with our largest ride being 233. People who have moved away from Longmont have started their own bike nights, so we are directly attributable to one in Thornton, Colorado, Calgary, Alberta. We have had the city of Firestone contact us this year, which is a small town just to our east. Downtown businesses in Colorado we say Louisville. In Kentucky you say Louisville. But in Louisville, contact us to figure out how to do a cruiser ride in their downtown to help bring people to their downtown and as an economic boom for them. The city of Brighton, which is another community here in Colorado, has contacted us as well and are interested in starting cruiser rides in their community for their families. In 2011, we also launched our quarterly e-newsletter through Constant Contact. 2012 was the Ignite Ride, as I mentioned, and then Bike to Work Day. This year we had more breakfast stations than at any other time. We also had a bike share that we're trying to get off the ground, a bike rack program, and we launched a nonprofit bike shop this year that we're trying to get volunteers for as well. We also have a Kids Holiday Bike program that we've been working with for about 4 years, and it's in its 25th year, and we give away about 400 bikes to low-income kids across Longmont each year. Let's see, how am I doing on time?
I'd be good to cover this real quick, and I've got a question or two for you.
Okay, great. I will wrap it up right after this one. So basically, what I can tell you from this presentation is that we go through all these different stages of forming, storming, learning, and performing. Bicycle Longmont is at a stage right now where hopefully in 2013 we're going to be going into our business practices and normalizing what it is that we do. We've been on an incredible growth rate over the last couple of years, and we want to start to refine what we do. We are having successes in bringing more people into the organization, and we are having a pretty good ride at this time. But it hasn't always been that way. We have had, like I mentioned, a lot of conflict on our board. Some people left, and other people we asked to leave. And in order to do that, we needed to move the organization forward, and it has been moving forward. So it's not always easy, and it's hard most of the time. And we're all volunteers trying to do this, and so we've had some success, and we're pretty grateful for it. Our takeaways: I would recommend that you focus your advertising and messaging on Facebook and Google. As a small club, this is the #1 way to make yourself appear larger and to draw in more people. You're not necessarily being deceitful, but you're basically offering yourself up at pennies on the dollar to a much wider variety of people. Facebook will take and look at people's profiles. If they have cycling listed there at all, or active recreation, they will market your group right to those specific people. Data is king. Count everything. If you have rides that you're doing, start taking roll call, or start counting the number of riders, and just keep a running total of those. It works great for when you go for funders and to try to get money and so forth. You can raise money for yourself, for your organization. A lot of times in cycling we feel we need to raise money for other programs, and it's okay to raise money for yourself as long as you're 501c3 and so forth. Always look for other organizations to partner with, especially as a small organization. Other organizations have already paved the way, so you might as well try and tag on with them. Your alternative rides can bring in more women and families and baby boomers and pretty much anybody you want to target and so forth. So also with your organization, celebrate everything. So if you're doing good in your neighborhood, celebrate it. Before, in nonprofits, quiet community service was kind of the thing. I would say now that is dead. If you want to raise a ruckus and you want to get people involved in your organization, you have to be forthright and celebrate everything. And then my bike shop piece here is bike shops are in it for the money. Keep referring business, and it'll be hard for them to say no to your group if you're bringing in money for them. So, and these are, I'll take some questions down. These are some links if you want to copy them down. Otherwise, I think Scott can probably email this out or have it available.
Sure, I'll put the presentation up on the page with the recording tomorrow. I got a couple of people that want to know about the how exactly the film night fundraiser works. What does that look like? What happens on those nights, and what do you charge?
Okay, so our film fundraisers, basically what we do is we go all over the internet, essentially, looking for independent bike-related films, and we basically go to those websites and we find out on there they usually list how to host a screening, and you can basically get in touch with whoever the producer or the director is of it, and they will send you a package saying these are the things that you need to do, this is the fee that I charge. What I found with nonprofits is that like for instance we did Ride the Divide, and I think this website is ridethedivide.com. What we found out with them is that they gave us a great deal on the license to show the movie, and they also gave us a percentage of the merchandise that we sold at the movie itself. So in terms of what we charged $10 for the movie, and we held it at we have an old downtown. So we have an opera house above one of our local bars, which is much like an IOOF or a Mason's meeting hall or something like that. And we held it there, and we were able to draw in people from the community. And the first year we raised about $3,500 over the course of 2 nights showing Ride the Divide and Race Across America. So we try to focus on bikes and so forth.
Cool, and people are asking, how do you handle liability on your cruiser rides? How do you handle waivers, and what's your insurance? Are you insured through the league?
We are insured through the league. We had thought that everybody who was on our cruiser ride was automatically covered, and then we found out that isn't the case. And what we do is we have the forms available at our rides, and people can fill them out if they feel confident in them or confident that they need to do so. The majority of people don't, even when we make them available. They assume the risk themselves. We haven't had anything go wrong yet. I conducted the ride from 2003 until 2009, not having any insurance or anything in place. right now. I am insured because I'm a member of Bicycle Longmont, their board, in case anything went bad. But yeah, it's still kind of one of those gray areas that we're feeling out. So.
Excellent opportunity for me to promo next month's webinar on the insurance program. We're mostly accepting feedback on the current insurance program, working on the 2013 program, which we'll present in January. I don't want to go too far. I know how deep these liability discussions can go, so I'm not going to go any deeper on this. But Bike Longmont and everyone does need to make sure what you're covered for and what your liability is. Thank you for the presentation, Ryan. And we're going to go ahead and move on. Teresa Filliman of the Southwest Bicycles Cycling Club is going to present to us next. Tell us, Teresa, how you run things.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate, Ryan, your feedback and your information. And I would be amiss if I didn't say thank you to the League for all of the webinars that you have provided me in learning how to do to the club. We are a relatively new organization. We were organized in 2009, and I'm assuming you guys can see my screen at this point. Is that true?
I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. And anyway, I'm just kind of starting with a few photos of our group to kind of get a feeling for who we are and what we kind of look like as a group. We're pretty varied in our membership. We were founded in 2009. We're quite a different group than what Ryan was implying with his advocacy. We are really a small club, and we just focus on rides more than anything else. Our current club membership is approximately 90 members. We range between 40 to 150 in any given year. We lead rides that are all volunteer-led rides, and we do that 2 to 7 times weekly, sometimes during the day, during the week, and sometimes usually on weekends. And that goes year-round because we're in Phoenix and we can do that. We are in the community. We do a lot of teams on our local charity rides that come up around the valley here in Phoenix. And we do sponsor 2 annual events as a club with the help of the bike shop that we are affiliated with loosely. And that is the annual Ride of Silence and the Breast Cancer Awareness Ride. So those are the 2 rides that as a club we staff and volunteer and organize every year. Our mission statement is to promote the love of casual cycling in a supportive group environment while emphasizing rider safety and abidance to pertinent traffic laws on our no-drop rides. And there's a few key points on this whole thing. The love of casual cycling. We are a club that really appeals to people who have maybe not been on their bikes since they were kids and now are getting back into cycling, or the weekend warrior that likes to go out and ride 20 to 30 miles on a weekend or shorter. And they want to have the supportive environment of a social environment, a group environment. So we provide that, where I have found that other clubs in the Phoenix metro area oftentimes are the type of rider that wants to go out and race, that rides, that drop their riders if you can't keep up, and it becomes a hammer fest. But we have a policy of no drop rides, and what that means is nobody's going to be left behind, nobody's going to ride by themselves. So, and we also, because all of our riders, many of our riders are coming back into riding for the first time after many years off, they may not be familiar with the local traffic laws and the responsibilities of cyclists, and so we try to educate our folks on that. So that's all part of our mission statement. And for some reason, it's not forwarding. There we go. As an organization, it was co-founded by the owner, one of the owners of Southwest Bicycles, and a volunteer, which would be myself. And it's a registered organization with the state of Arizona as a nonprofit club, and I am listed as the sole proprietor at this time. It is not a 501(c) organization. It's just simply a nonprofit club. So we obtained our employee identification number so that we could establish a bank account. And basically, the co-owner of the bicycle shop and myself serve as very loosely as the president and vice president and the signers on the bank account. We have no employees, but we are affiliated with the League of American Bicyclists. Our membership is a little bit more expensive than some of the other clubs in the area, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But our membership is $30 per year per adult, and if there's 2 adults in the same household, then we give a slight discount for $25 for the second adult in the same household. All members renew every year in June. This is a little bit unique, I think, in some bike clubs as well. Rather than having to keep track of who joined when and send them reminders to rejoin, I found that it was just easier to say our club year is from July to June. Everybody renews again in June. Now, if somebody comes on board to the club in the last 3 months before our renewal date, we kind of look at that and give them the benefit of the doubt to give them a few extra months. So we're not real picky about that, but we do. Everybody signs up every year, and for liability purposes, everybody is required to sign a waiver every year and a separate membership application. That membership application includes things such as their agreement to wear a helmet on every ride, their agreement to abide by the cycling laws, their agreement that it's okay to take their picture and use it, those kinds of things. Minors are admitted on a case-by-case basis. We have had some members ask if they can bring their youth along on a bike ride. And depending on the youth, depending on their skill set, we usually let them ride one time, and then we evaluate it. And again, this is kind of a tough call. Ryan was saying that sometimes it's not easy. And sometimes we have to tell parents that their minor isn't skilled enough to ride in a group yet, and that if they would work with them, they could come back. We do this for liability reasons only. We want to keep it as adults. We don't want to become a babysitting service on weekends to get their kid out on a bike and then they leave. If a parent has their child ride with us, we do ask that they ride with that child or minor on the ride that they choose to ride. All memberships are processed manually. We have not automated that process, so it is a paper process at this time. And they have multiple ways of sending us that information when they want to join. Many people just go to their sponsoring bike shop and sign up there, and then I pick up the paperwork later. Again, we were created for the adult cyclist and the casual riding. One of our founding attitudes is that everybody seems to be very welcoming, and as a result, we tend to draw people of similar nature. So we have a very welcoming attitude, and that has been one of our foundations to draw other people. No drop rides is another one that is our culture. So people who are new to cycling that maybe don't feel quite safe out there riding by themselves, they feel better about it if they know they're not going to be dropped. And they know they're going to be able to get back to the start without getting lost. Our emphasis on social riding. So a lot of times you might have noticed on one of the first pictures that there's a picture of us at breakfast. Usually after our Saturday or Sunday rides, sometimes during our week rides, whoever is available will join for breakfast or lunch, and that's the social aspect of that in addition to riding. And we emphasize law-abiding riding and stopping at stop signs and stopping at red lights and that type of thing, but enjoying it while we're doing it. One of our focuses, and this club was kind of born out of a charity ride. To give you a little bit of a background on that quickly, I was a team captain for a Tour de Cure event here in Phoenix, and I had been copying the bike shop on my training rides that I was conducting for my team. And shortly after that, I was approached by the bike shop and asked if I could maybe lead some of their weekend rides for them. And I did, and then right after that, it moved into, would you form a club, because our liability is getting too great, and we want it separated out from the shop itself. And so that's kind of how it was born, from a charity ride. And as a result, that's kind of where our focus lies. We don't require that of any of our members, but certainly we do encourage it. And again, we're a club for new riders, those returning, wanting to improve their skills. Some of the fun parts that I've had witnessed over just the last 2 years is having somebody come on board to ride with us that is very new, is scared that they can't even ride on a street. They're terrified. We work with them and get them comfortable with that, and then pretty soon they're faster than all of us, and they move on to other bike clubs that can meet their needs. And that's really awesome. We don't try to meet everybody's needs, but we have a niche that we feel like we are definitely meeting the needs of several people in the community. We do offer a variety of rides to accommodate most all skill abilities, from novice rides of less than 10 miles to more advanced rides that will do up to century rides when we're training for certain charity ride events. All of our rides are led by club-certified ride leaders. That was actually born out of an idea that I got from another club on a webinar. And Brian was talking about not recreating the wheel, and that club was very gracious in sharing with me their PowerPoint. And I kind of took their ideas plus our training that we had kind of put into place and generated our own 4-hour training session. And that is required of all ride leaders so that they understand the history and the culture of the club, that they understand safe cycling practices and demonstrate that on their rides so that they set a good example. And a large part, unfortunately, but a large part of our presentation of that 4 hours is centered around liability and risk management and what we can do as ride leaders to minimize those aspects of our groups. How to plan a safe route. And many people who have never thought about planning a route don't really understand that right turns are better than left turns, that crossing intersections at traffic-controlled intersections are better than busy intersections without that. So we touch on that, on how to plan a safe route and how to determine that for the type of ride that you are leading. Back to the different abilities that we have, cycling abilities, a route that is suitable for a novice rider will be maybe not as suitable for an advanced rider. And we talk about those things and how to plan that for those different groups. How to lead and execute a ride. If anybody on this call has ever led a ride before, you know it's kind of like herding cats that you've just let out of a bag. It's very difficult sometimes when you have more than 3 people to keep a group together and actually have it non-drop. So over the course of a couple of years, we've made some pretty bad mistakes, and we use those as examples to teach how to do things better. So we deal with that in training our ride leaders. And again, of course, what to do in the event of an accident incident, and familiarization with the incident report forms and that type of thing. And all of this helps to set examples for the riders that come and follow our ride leads. Some of our history, as I mentioned earlier, we host a couple of events each year. So far, we've hosted 4 of the annual breast cancer rides in October. We have had teams represented in 3 Tour de Cure events, and we are usually one of the top fundraising teams and one of the largest teams there. Somebody mentioned about recruiting and how do you recruit. We actually use these events as recruiting tools. We encourage our members to wear our jerseys out there. People see it. They see us either at riding the events or volunteering at events, and they ask about it because they can see how much fun we're having and they want to be a part of it. So we use that as recruiting opportunities as well. And then I've just listed several events in this Phoenix, Tucson metro area that many of our group members participate in. Usually, if there is availability to form a team, I will form a team for the club and let people sign up underneath that. And so again, we get recognition, we get recruitment opportunities for that. And then we've also hosted 3 Ride of Silence events since our inception. Our membership, we have kind of a unique relationship with a total third-party organization called plus3network.com. If you have not had an opportunity to see these folks, I would encourage all of you to sign up with them. It's a free service. They basically team up with benefactors and beneficiaries, and based on your activities that you log on their website, they donate money to your charity of choice out of the ones that they have listed on their site. We've teamed up with them early when we formed the club, and we actually have a group on that site, and our membership that chooses to log their activities on that network, we as a group have raised over $10,000 for various charities just by logging our activities on that site. And since our focus is kind of charity-driven, this is a perfect match for us. But again, individuals can do this, and it's a cool service and company. Our membership, and Ryan talked about relationship with bicycle clubs, or shops rather, and we were kind of born because the shop wanted to get rid of having the responsibility of leading their own shop rides. So we have a very close relationship with our bicycle shop, even though we are a separate organization from them. But one of the things that our shop does for us is if we participate in a club ride and log it on the Plus3 network, then we get reports from Plus 3 that tells us how many club rides you've done in a quarter, and the shop gives us a $1 shop credit for every club ride that we participate in and log on Plus 3. So back to the original membership cost of $30 a year, we have had couples on our club membership rolls that have earned more than $30 in shop credit in any given quarter. So even though our fees are a little higher than most, because of our relationship with Southwest Bicycles, we earn that back very easily throughout the course of the year. In addition to our $1 credit that the shop gives us, they also give us a discount at their shop for parts and accessories. Once a year, they host a members-only special sale night after the shop closes, which we get a very significant discount. We get a jersey at cost, those kinds of things. So we have a very close relationship with our bike shop, and it works out really well for us. And in return, as Ryan mentioned, they're in it to make money, to get more customers, and we bring those customers to them as well. So again, just a few more photos. The top one, the Ride of Honor at State Capitol, Honor Fallen Cyclists. That's going to become a yearly event sponsored by the Not One More Foundation, and it recognizes those cyclists that have been killed out while cycling in the state of Arizona. The Wounded Warriors ride that we participated in a year ago, and then again the American Diabetes Association Tour to Cure, we're almost always one of their largest teams, and we have a ball at that event. And then our annual breast cancer ride, our Ride of Silence. We have a Christmas lights night ride where we decorate our bikes and go down to the city of Glendale where they decorate their Old Town Square fully in lights and have a big festival down there every year. And so we ride through the neighborhoods and kind of spread Christmas cheer on our way down there and back. Our state capitol has a memorial area right in front of the state capitol for veterans of different wars and different groups that have influenced and had impact on the state of Arizona. We take a club ride down there 3 times a year on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Labor Day. And it gives our club members a chance to see downtown Phoenix through the eyes of a cycle and to be able to go down and recognize and honor the folks that made a difference in our lives nationally and in our state. And then our Halloween ride, we always try to encourage people to dress up appropriately for bicycles and go out for a ride. So those are kind of some of the things, who we are, what we do. I'm open for questions at this time. If you have want any more information, please feel free to visit our website, or if you want me to answer a question directly, please feel free to email me at the info address that you see. Other than that, thank you, Ryan, so much for presenting earlier, and thank you, Scott, for having me on tonight. And we're a new club, but if I can help anybody else get started or answer questions, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thanks, Teresa. I appreciate your willingness to share. One thing specifically that someone asked if you could share is your training session on being a ride leader. If you've got materials on that you can provide to people, you can send it through me, or if you're willing to have it available on our Club Leadership Resources page, people are definitely interested in that.
Yes, I would be more than happy to share the PowerPoint on that.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. I have one great question I'm going to hold to the end. I think it's a good question for the entire panel, but no other specific questions right now, so I'm going to hand the presentation over to Cesar Jenkins of the Folks on Spokes Bicycle Club from the Chicagoland area. South side of Chicago, is that right?
Right. Hello, my name is Cesar Jenkins from Folks on Spokes. Folks on Spokes is actually a club with a very wide range of geography it covers. Most would consider a South Suburban club, but it actually extends all the way into Indiana. So if anyone's from Chicago, they may realize how big of an area that is. So first, a little history about Folks on Spokes. Folks on Spokes is actually a pretty old club. It's older than I am. It was originally started in 1977 from Dino's Bike Shop. We put an ad in a local paper asking people if they wanted to start a bike club. And their first ride was to a winery, and the reason I point this out is it's something we're starting to bring back as rides to breweries and whatnot. And it had its first invitational that same year in October. and they switched the Invitational to the Easter Ride in 1981. At first, the Folks on Spokes Cycling Club was very much into advocacy. They had instrumental in creating the Chicagoland Bicycle Federation, which is now Active Transit, and in the formation of the League of Illinois Bicyclists. I believe for the first couple of years, a lot of our club members were on the board of these organizations, and some still are. We were instrumental in the formation of 2 or 3 local trails. These days, advocacy is almost done purely by those organizations. We will just write letters occasionally or talk to our members about some advocacy. But what we do each year is we've been giving $1,000 each to League of American Bicyclists, League of Illinois Bicyclists, and Active Transit. That's been going on for a while, probably 5 to 10 years. So what do? We're very much primarily a rides-based organization. We have 5 to 7 weekly summer rides ranging from 3 people up to 15, 20. Those almost always will be decided by the members that show up to the ride. Sometimes it's decided beforehand, and it's one thing I'm currently trying to improve with the club, is trying to get word out to the members about exactly what a ride is going to involve before they show up. In the winter, we have 2 weekly rides, a slow ride and a fast ride. I've started pushed, and now it's having to call the slow ride the casual ride. So it's a no-drop ride. And then in the winter, there's show and goes. That show and go ride, if you've never done one, is pretty much the idea that it's recorded. You show up if other people are there, you go on a ride. If not, you maybe on your own. You occasionally have special rides. That's one thing I'm pushing for in the club, is going back to doing some special rides. We have a history of overnight rides and some touring rides and rides to some events. This year we did a, I'd say, reasonably successful ride to Pierogi Fest in Whiting, Indiana. We're almost primarily a recreational club these days, so during the winter, a lot of times our members will turn to hiking. I think we have 8 or 9 hikes listed currently, and when it gets really snowy, we'll start doing cross-country skiing. In the city of Chicago, paths are typically plowed during the winter, but out in the suburbs and out in our area, they're not plowed or maintained during the winter, so a lot of times you could take a trail and use it for cross-country skiing. Some of our main events we do every year, we have a picnic, a pizza party, some other social events like end of season, potluck. Those are usually pretty well attended.
I have a couple of requests, Caesar, just quickly, if you could speak up a little bit. Some people are having trouble hearing.
Sure, is that better?
A little louder would be great. He has a kid sleeping in the next room, so... All right.
Actually, give me half a second, I can turn it up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. There we go. Is that better? Okay. So I'll try and speak up some more. Our main fundraiser is called the Easter Ride. The most interesting thing about the Easter Ride, is what we're known for, is that it's not on Easter. It's usually a month away from Easter. What originally happened was we had an invitational in late October, and because it was competing with all the other invitational rides during the summer, that they decided to make our invitational ride the first ride of the season. It's very dependent on the weather. Last year was very good weather. We ended up with 500 plus riders. I don't have the specifics on hand, but I believe we made we brought in $14,000, and the costs were between $5,000 and $6,000. So the ride is very successful, and we actually end up with more money than we know what to do with. We currently have 90 members. In the past, this ranges as much as 300, and I've heard more, but I don't have specific data on the past memberships. Membership itself is $15.25 for a family. That's considered pretty cheap for clubs in the area of Chicago, from what I understand. So it's not really a barrier from anybody. One thing about our club is most of our members have been members for decades, 20, 30 years. The demographics of our club is actually pretty old, and it's one thing I'm trying to work on is increasing demographic range of members. Structure of our club. We have 4 elected board members. We are a 501c3, and you'll see elected there in quotes because in recent memory there has never really been a runoff between someone for a position. So we have president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and other board positions are pretty much appointed by the president, or if someone steps up, there's usually no objection to them doing something. Like I said, our culture is most members have known each other for years and years. That's recently resulted in, I think, in some membership declines because some people won't join the club to go with rides because they already know the people they're going on rides with and can just show up. Even with that, everyone's always been welcoming. It's very much these days a recreational cycling-driven club. We do have a commuter log where people can send in the miles they do for commuting. It's not used much these days. I think a big part of that is because most of our membership are retirees, so there's not much commuting to be done, and there's not much utility riding to be done. I think that's a big part of the area because we are in suburbs and further flung suburbs, and something I like to see changed. So we have some weaknesses. I believe, I forget what stage it was talked about in the first presentation, but I think we're very much the point where it's beginning to stagnate and we got to throw some new ideas into it and start creating some new norms. We have very few new members. It's only usually 1 or 2 a year, so it's been declining. There's a pretty reasonable amount of burnout. A lot of the members have been through the board, and you've done this ride for 20 years, you've done this job 2 or 3 times, it's usually time for someone to come out, someone else to come in and do it. Like I mentioned earlier, demographic skewed to the older side, and so we really need some new members for our club. For the longest time, joining was purely in paper form. It resulted in you almost never got new members unless they picked up the Easter ride or someone gave them a form. It's now up on the website, but there's some things that need to be changed about that. So what we're really trying to do, some recent developments this year is we're trying to push some marketing. One of the biggest problems is you say Folks and Spokes and people in the area go, who? They don't know that we actually exist. Put together a new mailing list so that it's really easy for our members to say, hey, I'm going on a ride on Sunday, here's where I'm going, let other people know. It's actually been pretty successful. And I recommend to anyone out there with a club, if you don't have a way for members to communicate with other members, I think it's really good to have one. It can be a Facebook group. We've started using meetup.com to bring in new people. That's one way for people to communicate. Meetup.com is open to non-members and members too. One thing we do as far as membership benefits are involved is to be on the mailing list, you have to be a paid member. We always put all of our rides on meetup.com, but what we do on the mailing list is we will advertise some rides from overlapping clubs. We'll post news about cycling in the region. We'll post things about like our social events, which aren't listed up on Meetup if they're members only. If you've ever heard of the Chainlink is a social networking group in Chicago for cycling. It has, I believe, 7,000 or 8,000 members, so we've been posting on there. We've been seeing what works. We originally had a Google group discussion list where the idea was people would discuss with each other back and forth, and we had an announcement list. Well, the discussion list didn't work so well, so we had an announcement list that people can post to. It's moderated though, so it's more of a, hey, I'm going on a ride, and the idea that people might talk about like cycling news stories never really worked out for our members. So what we're trying to do now to revitalize the club is get a steady flow of new members. I think any club needs a flow of new members, people who are excited. If you have the same club members for a long time, eventually some of them will lose the excitement. I mean, some will keep the excitement, but you can only ask some person to do so much. You can't have someone do the same thing year over year or year. Eventually they want to try and do something new. Communications is big. When I mentioned the 5 to 7 weekly rides, there are a couple rides that are occurring that had large turnouts, and we had no idea. No one on the board knew. A lot of the membership didn't know that this was a really good ride. If you wanted to ride with people, there's a lot of people here, and it was all just a matter of communication. We've they asked something like, well, we've done this ride for 20 years. We thought everyone knew about it, and they don't. So, and here I put interesting in quotes. Rides like to Pierogi Fest. We had a recent ride to a Brickstone Brewery, a brewery in the area, which got 15 to 20 riders, I believe, which is a really good turnout for one of our rides. So it's right now we're trying anything and everything to get new members and kind of revitalize the club. So I believe the things that have worked so far, Meetup have worked really well, and the announcement group list has worked really well. And I didn't even think of a Facebook page, but thank you. I believe it was Ryan who mentioned Facebook. That's something I'll probably be trying soon also. I believe that's it for the presentation. Are there any questions?
Terrific. We'll certainly have questions at the end. I'm going to move us along. I think this is a nice lead-in. After the insurance presentation in January, I hope to have a session dedicated to attracting younger riders to your club in February. So if anybody out there is having great success with that and wants to speak on that, or anybody interested in the topic, I hope you will join us in February. And now, last but not least, Andres Ozelins of the Finger Lakes Cycling Club. If you could take a few minutes and tell us about how you operate things up there, and then we'll throw a couple of questions and get a little discussion going before we close things out.
Okay, maybe least after all. You can hear me, I presume?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, well, our club, I guess it beats the Chicago club even by a few years. It originated in the very beginning of the 70s. I wasn't really aware of that, but we had a meeting to celebrate our 30th anniversary this summer, at which the oldest club member came and told us that we were actually 40 years old. So you live and learn. The club began with a very direct aim at racing. This is a college town, and in addition to having a lot of young, strong people in it, anyway, it also happened to have a lot of strong bike racers in it. So the very beginning of the club was definitely oriented around racing, and the first activities that the club has recorded were things that we pretty much continue to this day. I don't know if people are aware, we're in Ithaca, New York, which is the home of Cornell University and Ithaca College. And it's at the southern end of Cayuga Lake, which is the largest of the Finger Lakes in the center of New York State. The lake is about 45 miles long, so it formed a natural challenge to all the cyclists, as it still does, to ride around it. And people ride around it in the summer, they race around it, they ride around it on New Year's Day and various things like that. So it's kind of given the tenor to the club of being a racing club. Also, the other thing about Ithaca is that it's very hilly. So the other thing that began in the very early days of the club was a hill climb. And I've kind of resurrected the hill climb. You can find it on the racing page here. Does this really work? Do I have access to this? No, I don't.
I can click through for you.
But it's really not important. What I'm just trying to say is that the racing and the competitiveness shades into fun, because the hill climb is purely fun, and we have about 35 people show up every year for this event, rain or shine, and people ride in this double elimination kind of format up a hill through the cemetery up towards Cornell University. So that's kind of the tone of the club. The size of the club has fluctuated around 100 ever since that beginning time. It was started in the 70s with a big bike boom and peaked in the 80s. By the time I joined the club in the end of the 80s, around 1990, it was really on the wane, that people had stopped paying attention to it, and the ridership was off. People weren't attending rides. It was kind of at a loss. So that was the point at which the first thing happened that I think might be of value to other people. What we did, I had just joined it, and together with a couple of people who were the officers of the club, we started to do a newsletter, and it really transformed the club, because from an organization that met whenever anybody happened to go for a ride, there was suddenly something that came every month. And what we put in it was the writings that were appearing on email lists. Not everybody read email in those days, so it was news to a lot of people. But even people who had seen the email really enjoyed this writing, because it was about us. Their names were in it, their locations were in it. It gave a really concrete feeling to what went on rides, and it drew a lot of people back out onto the road who maybe wouldn't have gone, who maybe had given up riding or just been distracted and hadn't been doing it. And we were lucky, because there was a gang of about 6 outstanding writers. These people were really wonderful in telling a story and evoking a mood. Anyway, we did that for a few years, and then of course the internet eventually came and rendered it moot. The second thing after the newsletter was the email list, and that has really been important to us. It's always been open to anyone who wants to be on it, including people who don't bike, on the theory that the way to get people interested in biking is to give them something to be interested in. So they can lurk on our list as long as they want, and also they can go on our website and read anything they want. It's good bait. Our hope is to get people involved in bicycling, not to grow a club particularly, although it's nice if people would join the club. So that another topic is club membership. Our dues are $10 a year, $12 for family membership, and $7 for anybody who belongs to another bike club already. So this obviously isn't about money. But the club is very well off. That racing tradition has continued with a spring race that we hold every May, the first Sunday in May. And what used to be a fun race that the local racers got together for and almost did an informal race has grown over the years to where we get something like 250 people come from all over the Northeast to participate, and they're fairly competent, fairly high-end racers. So it's quite an exciting event, and it's pretty highly regarded. Anyway, that brings in enough money that we can coast the rest of the year. It's always a little tricky to rely on a thing like that because you have so much invested in porta potties and volunteers and bagels and all sorts of other things that are required to put on a race, that if the weather ever turned really bad and nobody showed up, we'd lose everything. But it's been successful and, if anything, still growing, and we make enough money on that that nobody's ever been interested in raising the dues. And actually, we kind of lapsed in asking people to join the club. For several years, we were just kind of coasting along. We don't ask anyone to sign in or prove club membership to join rides. So there wasn't any pressure to join. And just this last spring, I kind of raised a campaign to get people to join because our local bike clubs, our local bike shops, who give discounts to club members, were really complaining that people didn't have membership cards and they didn't have any way to show what was going on. So this year we put on a more concerted effort to get people to sign up, and we have now 140 members. And it's hard to say whether that's much more than it used to be in the past, but it's definitely a great strengthening from 1990 status of the club that I founded at. As I think I suggested at the beginning, the club has pretty much done what it wants in spite of leadership rather than the other way around. It started as a racing club. It continues as a club that's basically dominated by people who go fast, who treat most rides as training rides. And I've been trying to institute different policies, trying to get people to regard it as more social. And it really hasn't gone anywhere. Those rides are what they are. They've been the same in their character for 40 years. And I kind of decided that maybe it was pointless to try to change it. So one of the things that I did about 6-7 years ago was to establish a slow ride every week. It's a once-a-week ride in a different part of the city where we have a stretch of about 12 miles of reasonably flat road. And that's a place where we can invite slow riders, riders who haven't been on bikes in a long time, people with kids, and anyone who has concerns about their ability or braving the highways. People like that can come there. They know they won't be dropped. Someone will stay with them, and there's usually, there's always experienced riders around who will help them, whether it's with how to ride or how to change flats and so on. And that ride has been very successful. It's grown in the number of people who actually like to join it. So now we have 12 to 18 people routinely come and do this so-called slow ride, even though they're not hesitant or inexperienced or anything. They just like it. But we do have a steady crop of people who get introduced to cycling in that way. Another thing that we've done in the last few years is to put an emphasis on touring. And that's simply been by announcing rides. One friend of mine and I, my friend is now the president of the club, and I'm the VP for touring. Anyway, we conspire to create these weekend rides where we leave Friday afternoon and ride to a nearby campsite, and on Saturday we ride to another campsite that's within range of Ithaca, and then Sunday we return home. So it's a weekend vacation that people can use to get the hang of bicycling, touring, and to see how they like it, and they're never so far away that they can't make a phone call and get rescued. I think the picture on the top of the web page is from one of those rides that we took up to Cayuga Lake Park. And this has been very successful in bringing self-contained touring to the forefront of the club. It's not that we have a huge wave of interest in it, but we do have interest. And each of these rides that we declare has found a lot of favor, and you know, we have maybe a dozen people on a good ride like that, and we do 2 or 3 of those. And every summer we've also made sure to have a longer ride that's a week to 10 days. Those have typically been in Vermont or the eastern townships of Quebec, or somewhere in the Northeast that's not too far away to get to. And we have more experienced people predominantly on those rides. But once in a while we introduce someone new to it, and they become really ardent bicycle tourists. And that's the kind of direction that we're trying to go to, the direction of cycling that isn't competitive, that's more to enjoy yourself. In the case of self-contained touring, it's a really cheap way to take a wonderful vacation that's healthful and so on. And we're a couple of us club officers are trying to promote that more. My friend, the club president, has taken particular interest since his daughters expressed a desire to ride with other cyclists their own age. He's expressed an interest in running tours involving kids. And for the last 4 or 5 years now, we've had a young people's tour every summer. And the tours inevitably draw a lot of adults, because parents either need to go with their kids or want to go with their kids. So this past June we had a tour with 60 people, of whom 30 were youngsters and 30 were older people who were driving sag wagons and doing cooking and various things like that. It's an incredibly popular ride. People want to know where we're going next year. It's really caught on, and it looks like it's going to be a sizable mission of the club in the future. So the racing tradition continues. We still have the races. We not only have the road race in the spring, but cyclocross in the last few years has been a very important addition. There have been years when we've had 3 cyclocross races locally. And you know, fast riding continues. But there's also periodic interest in polo and things like that. So the club, without a lot of manipulative planning, seems to be kind of on autopilot, and I'm glad to have been part of it, and glad that we can shape some of it to serve the needs of a kind of riding that maybe hasn't been served spontaneously so well. There's been a concern with slower riders throughout the years, and I think it's universal among bike clubs. There's a seemingly inevitable life cycle of rides, that the rides get faster, and I've even seen that with my so-called slow ride. As people gain confidence, they simply go faster, and they enjoy it enough that they don't want to slow down. So we've always had a question of how to get slower riders involved, how to get the general population of cyclists involved, not just people who are competitive. This year was the first year we started a Saturday ride, which the idea was that it has no history. Nobody can say we've always done it this way. So it's a ride for which we actually have people sign up, and sign up at the beginning and sign out at the end, and a leader and a sweep is appointed for each ride, so that we can be completely sure that no one ever is dropped. And that ride has been very popular, so I'm hoping that maybe we can get our main rides to be a little bit more concerned with each other that way too. So I guess I'll leave it to questions.
Great. Thank you, Andres. Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions. One very specific question about Finger Lakes and your racing approach. Are you affiliated with USA Cycling, and are you doing sanctioned races, or are they citizen races?
No, our main race is definitely a sanctioned race, and it pretty much has to be, I think. As I said, it used to be just a project of love on the part of the racers, who would go out and race each other. But it's become an event that people come to from considerable distances, and they really want it to count. You know, they want it to be significant towards their upgrades and things like that. So it's a serious race, and we have to conform to all the criteria.
Okay, here's one that I think is an interesting question for everyone, but you had touched on it a little bit, Andres. This club, they're having trouble keeping their paid memberships current because nobody's asking them to renew. It seems to be too much of a hassle to, I guess, to the work involved in sending out renewal notice and things like that. Some on the board have suggested that no dues be charged at all. Are there ways to relieve the load in terms of asking people to renew and making the process easier? Or are dues not worth the trouble? Should they consider going dues free? I think everybody here charges dues, although Ryan, who's gone, I think they were thinking about more of an event-based revenue stream. Any thoughts, I guess, starting with Andres and then Caesar and Teresa, if you have ideas. How did you get that dues paying started up again, Andres?
Well, I started it up first by instituting a mechanism that would be painless. I created a web page that you could probably click on there. It's under club stuff at the top. There's a very simple PayPal button now that anybody with a credit card can pay. And we actually try not to have anyone pay in any other way. We don't want checks. We don't want anything else. This is a way that it can be done very easily. So once it was possible to do it easily, we could begin to dun people to do it. And I just got out and first I sent an email every day for 3 days, and then I sent one every other day, and then I sent one every week. And before long, everybody had clicked on it. It isn't that the people don't want to; it's just that they don't think of it, that they don't get around to it. And the cost, by having the cost so low, that truly isn't a factor, because I think really anyone with a bicycle can pay $10 for a club membership. The question of what they get for it, though, is more elusive. I don't know that I can justify what they get for it. I think what we get for it, though, is a commitment, and that's why I would never drop the dues entirely. It's just a symbolic thing. It's a click, but it means that people have some interest in the club, and without that, there simply isn't any cohesiveness. There isn't any getting people to volunteer or do anything. That small thing seems to make a large difference in getting people to behave like a community rather than as unconnected individuals.
Teresa, Andres?
I was just going to say, this is Teresa. One of the ways that we do it is because we only renew once a year. So we don't have to bug people year long to renew. I do send out a weekly email to all of our mailing list, which includes not only our current members, but past membership and anybody who just wants to be on our email list about rides. So starting in May, I usually start attaching our waiver and our membership application to those weekly ride emails to let people know what's coming up, and then to remind them that the renewal time is starting and that you have 30 days to get it done. And I hold over their head that if they don't renew, they're not going to be covered by our club insurance on our club rides. So that tends to kind of get people moving to go ahead and renew.
Actually, we do the exact same thing as you. Our membership is renewed once a year, I believe, in May. And as the exact opposite of Andres is, almost all of our memberships are check. There's only 2 or 3 online, but I've mentioned this year that I believe that issue is that, excuse me, is that we have a $15 membership, but the service provider we're using to pay for it has a $4.95 charge. So, yeah, so I'm probably going to be moving to PayPal or something similar soon. But we've actually had the exact same discussion that should we even charge for membership? And we're still not we're still not out on that one.
Okay, well now Andres has already hinted at the big question that I had looming. Just the question of the value. What is the value that you're offering for your membership payment? What do people get for their money? Andres, you talked about it a little bit. Caesar, what do people get for their money when they join Folks on Spokes?
I think it's a commitment. What they get for their money is the big one right now is our mailing list and our events. We have the picnic and the pizza party are members only, and the pizza party, which is actually coming up next week, which most of our members will go to, is free. It's at a restaurant. We pay for all the food. So that's a big one, and I think we actually ended up earlier this year with 75 members until the announcements for the pizza party went out, and we had a lot of people renew to go to the pizza party. So I'm not exactly sure if we don't use LAB insurance. I'm not sure if non-members are covered or not, so I'm not sure if that's a benefit. I'm trying to provide more benefits. We used to provide new members with patches. I've been thinking about possibly doing something like a membership premium where you get like a patch or something, and maybe getting some discounts from some local bike shops, but that's all in the future.
Teresa?
Yeah, for me that's pretty easy because we are so closely affiliated with our bike shop. And the bike shop does give us, like I mentioned in the presentation, we get $1 store credit for every club ride we participate in as a member of the club if it's logged on +3, so that's a benefit right there. They do give us store discounts year-round, 10% off of all of their, supplies and parts and accessories. Once a year they host a club members only night sale that is far and above what they would offer to the public. So that is an awesome benefit for us. In addition to the lab insurance on club rides, so that they do have that benefit as well. So for me, it's a pretty easy sale for value for what they're joining. And it's strictly, primarily because of the relationship that we have with the local bike shop.
Great. One thing that I would add on Ryan's behalf, and in a completely self-serving league way, Bicycle Longmont is what we call a 100% club. All of their members become members of the league and thus get our magazine as well as Bicycling magazine. The clubs that participate typically pass along the $15 per member charge, which is what we charge the club to make all their members our members in the dues, but then add the benefits of the 2 magazine subscriptions, the additional membership. So that's one way that some clubs add value. We've got about 10 100% clubs involved at this point, so that's another way to add value to membership. Someone else just mentioned that their club, they get a membership card, and I think that's sort of in line with what Andres was saying. I've talked to other people before about membership cards, and they're feeling that having that material card in their hands gives them more of an ownership and makes them more a part of the club. But it's also what they use to get a bike shop discount, which I think Andres mentioned.
I can add a little bit to that, too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was approached very recently, and I think this is going to happen a lot. One of the clubs, one of the bike shops here is setting up an online ordering system, which, it's a small shop, but they dovetail somehow with one of those national, it's not the bicycle, it's the big bike parts company, which I can't remember the name of. Anyway, it's a huge catalog of bike stuff, so you can order online almost anything imaginable through that bike shop's website. And the bike shop wants to give a discount to club members. So we have to really move into an electronic membership system somehow. so that we can let the shop know who is a legitimate member in order to reap this discount. It could be substantial because the shop is really interested in getting online ordering, because that's the kind of stuff that most bicyclists will do through Amazon or through the web rather than through their local shop. And it's a definite benefit that any club member will have. And for that, you really have to have accurate records, and you have to have them electronically retrievable, because there's no way to send a postcard. First send the card, membership card, to the sign-up bicyclist, and then send the postcard to the shop telling them that this is a legitimate member. The information network really has to be seamless, and that should be online. So we're beginning to think about how to do that as a next step. But that's definitely a benefit that the shops want to support the club. And the other thing is simply the organizational effort. Most people really appreciate what it requires to get someone to make out a year's schedule of bike rides, to map the routes, to have those routes and cue sheets available. The cost, the actual cost of membership is, even the clubs that charge much more, it's really not very much if you think of it in terms of recreation budget for an average family.
That's a great thought. I appreciate all the answers. I appreciate all the questions. We didn't get to all the good questions that were here lined up. We're about 10 minutes past the time when we said we would be done. I've gotten some praise already from the people listening in. Thank you, panelists, for what you presented about your clubs. I think this has been really useful for people. Thank you for everyone who attended. Thank you to bikestoreguys.com for sponsoring the webinars. We will get this recording up tomorrow. We'll get the presentations. If the presenters will send me their presentations, make those available as well at the Club Corner tomorrow. Thanks again from me, Scott Williams, and the League of American Bicyclists. Thank you, panelists. Everybody, have a great night.